Welcome to Watch, Review, Repeat. This is the podcast where two best friends discuss the latest in film and television and then do it all over again the following week. My name is Colton Brown, and joining me is Andrew Meadows.
Colton Brown.
Is that you, Prime?
Yes.
It is also me. I am also Optimus Prime. How is this possible?
I've seen Bumblebee. He's saved the Earth.
Hey now.
But has he? We don't know. That's spoiler territory. We don't know. We don't talk about that yet.
Yeah, we can't get there yet. But we are talking about Bumblebee this week. You are correct on that. I don't think that's a spoiler to say. It's another Transformers film. Or is it? I don't know. We'll get into it. But I am excited to talk about it. This is kind of... I mean, this movie came out a couple weeks ago, so... It came out, around the Christmas time, but Christmas was just a very loaded time for movies. You took a little vacation, so, things got pushed back inevitably, but we're here now, It's not too late, I don't think. I think there's still plenty of time to talk about Bumblebee. You can still go see it in theaters and such, if we recommend you to do so. I don't know, that might be a spoiler. We'll get there. But I do want to make mention of the fact that we have a new bonus episode up. We recorded it very recently, and it concerns a film on Netflix by the name of The Ballad of Buster Scruggs. So we had fun recording it. It's the latest Coen Brothers film. Anyone familiar with the Coen Brothers knows that they are geniuses of film, and I think overall we really enjoyed our time with this movie enough to, dedicate an hour and a half to talking about it. So if you'd like to listen to our thoughts on that movie, right now it's a timed exclusive for our supporters on Patreon. So if you head to watchreviewrepeat.com, click the premium tab in the top left, and then click the Become a Patron button. $2 a month will get you access to that bonus episode, along with early access to all of our regular episodes, and then, of course, the timed exclusive access to any of our future bonus episodes that we do. So we encourage you to... take that up if that sounds intriguing to you. Do you have a fun fact ready this week, my friend?
I do have a fun fact. And this can kind of foreshadow at least my opinion on the movie we're talking about tonight. So, the prodigy that is Michael Bay. I don't know if he's a prodigy anymore. I don't know. Maybe that's the wrong word. But the acclaimed director, Michael Bay, who started the Transformers the Transformers saga. Started with Transformers in 2007. He's directed Transformers Revenge of the Fallen, Transformers Dark of the Moon, Transformers Age of Extinction, and Transformers The Last Knight. Bumblebee is the only Transformers movie that is not directed by Michael Bay. And... according to Rotten Tomatoes, it is also the highest, Bumblebee being the highest rated Rotten Tomatoes film at 92%, followed by the first entry in the series, which was the original Transformers movie, but it ranks out at 57%. So it's close to double the score there. So when you said earlier... it's a Transformers movie, but is it? It begs the question, is it just another Transformers movie? And I would say according to the metrics on Rotten Tomatoes, this is a Transformers movie, but of a different vein, of just a much higher quality. So, yeah, I thought that was my fun fact. This is at least the internet seems to think that this is a farly superior film, and it's the only one not directed by Michael Bay. So
is it a coincidence? We'll let our listeners decide for themselves. We're not trying to push them into any certain direction, of course. But critics have spoken. We will speak on it soon. I don't know that we're not as enlightened as perhaps some of those critics think themselves. So we have a little bit, maybe something closer to a layman's opinion. So maybe, sometimes people agree with the critics, sometimes people disagree with the critics. We'll just, our listeners will just have to wait and find out where we stand. Before we do, we are going to talk about some news for this week. But of course, I'll start this week with pointing out the fact that the Golden Globes have lost their fucking minds.
What happened at the Golden Globes?
I think the biggest thing to take into consideration, I'm not going to go through all of the Golden Globe winners. I'm sure some people watched the broadcast. If not, you can find the full list of winners on their website. Bohemian Rhapsody won Best Motion Picture for a drama.
What? No. I guess I can't have an opinion. I never saw it. So to be fair, my opinion's probably...
Sure. That's fair. But this movie sucked. So I think I can definitely speak on this and say that there's not a universe where this should have even been nominated for Best Picture in anything. Unless you're talking about like Best Motion Picture for films specifically about Queen and Freddie Mercury, then okay, I guess probably by default it's probably the best one. Although given the timing of the release, there was probably like a documentary or something that came out around the same time that's probably better too. Yeah, I don't know, man. That's wild. I know Rami Malek won for Best Actor, which I didn't mind that. I thought he was very good as Freddie Mercury, and I felt like, in spite of his performance, I felt like the film itself was a weak film, bolstered by fantastic music from Queen, because it's music from Queen, of course it's fantastic. So I think that there's an element of that when I look at this, and I'm like, I feel like, I don't know, it seems like people are not seeing this film for what it is. I don't want to tell people how to feel about things, I guess, but it is not a good film. It was nominated alongside Black Panther, Black Klansman, If Beale Street Could Talk, and A Star Is Born, and I can unequivocally say that all four of those films are leaps and bounds better than Bohemian Rhapsody.
I could tell you that at least two of them are really fucking good. I've seen two of them. So yeah, I don't know. So, I don't have an opinion.
Let's just say this is a preview of what we're going to be talking about in another episode when we do our look back at 2018. Bohemian Rhapsody will not be anywhere close to my top 5. So if you consider that a spoiler, so be it. But yeah, I don't know. It's fucking insane. The whole Golden Globe thing to me is very bizarre because Bohemian Rhapsody, so there's a separate category for Best Motion Picture for musical or comedy, and Bohemian Rhapsody I would think would qualify closer to a musical than a drama. I mean, I get it as a drama, but I think if you're going to split those like that, I find that strange personally.
Why would the fact that they group musical and comedy, why is a comedy end with a musical? Why wouldn't you have two separate things? Why would you group musical and comedy together?
I assume because there's probably usually not enough from either category to justify like 10 total nominations. You can usually build 5. I get that. I mean, it's weird because it's like these are two very different things. It's kind of weird to compare them.
It's like, say, Best Motion Picture, horror or horror
science
or
fiction,
science
I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess sometimes there's commonality, but is there?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, so I don't know. But like Green Book won for Best Motion Picture. I can't say picture. Best Motion Picture for musical or comedy. I didn't see it, but I don't think it's either of those things from what I understand. I'm sure there's humorous moments in it, but comedy seems like it's stretching it. Definitely not a musical. We can definitely say it's not a musical, but I don't know.
I don't know anything about it.
I just found some of these bizarre. I mean, there were some things I felt like I agreed with, and I won't speak on everything here, but Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse won Best Animated Motion Picture, which I think that's a worthy
sure.
winner for that. So I don't know. We will be talking very soon about kind of our picks for favorite films 2018, some of our technical awards. We'll do something very similar, I think, to what we did last year. I think we're going to try to streamline it a little bit because we got pretty crazy talking about it last year when we were talking about the previous year's films. But I make no promises. It's one of those things. It might lend itself to extensive conversation, and we like having conversation. We like to talk on this podcast. I don't know if you guys have picked up on the fact that our episodes have gotten just like longer and longer and longer, like the more we go on.
Eventually we just don't give a shit. We're just going to fucking talk about everything. We don't care anymore.
So, I will leave it at that for the Golden Globes. I say I just couldn't get over Bohemian Rhapsody winning. I totally bizarre. I know some people enjoyed the film. I know my parents enjoyed the film.
That's great.
They're big fans of Queen, and I think that from a musical standpoint, it's great. I mean, it's using some phenomenal music. I don't think there's any disputing that. I just felt like as an actual film itself, it was a failing that made up a lot of fiction about the story that I felt like wasn't as compelling as probably just telling the real story would have been. And it has the whole stink of Bryan Singer all over it, which is disappointing to say the least. So Rami Malek in his acceptance speech made no mention of Bryan Singer directing at least a good portion of this movie, which is kind of telling. So I don't know. It feels gross to me to hand out awards to movies directed by pedophiles. So, you know, I don't think that's a hot take, but maybe it is. I don't know.
Not only that, but I mean, it's a movie directed. If you can't recognize the director, then it's a problem. You know, just period.
Right. You know, if your lead actor is dancing around the fact that the director for part of this movie, he was fired or left or whatever the official story was and replaced by Dexter Fletcher, but due to the guild rules, Singer got sole directorial credit, so his name is on this thing. There's no, and it's not like they could just erase it off the back of the Blu-ray box or anything like that. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I think there's an element of that's pretty gross. But I said I was going to say no more, and then I said more. So I will definitely say no more, and I will pass it over to you and ask what piece of news you have for us this week.
Grand Admiral Thrawn is going to be in a couple movies this year. Not Grand Admiral Thrawn, but the man who voiced Grand Admiral Thrawn in the Star Wars animated stuff. Maz? No, his brother. That's his brother.
That's incorrect, but I appreciate the effort.
The Mikkelsen family. What?
Yes.
Just scratch it all. Scratch it all. We're going from the beginning. Maz Mikkelsen is going to be in 2 movies this year. How about that? That's better. That's a lot better. He's in a comic book movie called Polar. And he plays we got a trailer for it. He plays it almost looks like the Keanu Reeves movie. What is it?
Yeah, it looks like a very hyper stylized John Wick.
That's
even more stylized John Wick.
So there's that. And it looks like it's going to be a Netflix film, I believe.
Yeah, it actually comes out at the end of this month, so it's right around the corner.
So I will definitely be catching this day one. I like Mads Mikkelsen a whole lot, and I think it looks interesting. But I think the one that really gets me going is Arctic, and I think this one comes out in February or the beginning of February.
Yes, I believe so.
And this one looks like it looks like a plane crashed. It's him and a lady, and the lady is sick or injured or something, and she's running out of time, so he's got to traverse the Arctic with her in order to get her to safety or something along those lines. And this is one of those movies where you have a really good actor carrying a however long movie this is. As we talk about in the Buster Scruggs episode, if you have a lead actor that is capable of doing that, it's usually a very good experience. It's a very raw, real experience. So I think Maz is perfectly capable of doing that, and I'm excited to see him do it. So I am pumped up about that movie. Did you see any of these trailers?
I saw both. So I'll speak on Arctic first, because I think this is definitely the far more interesting of the two. Mm-hmm. Yes, big fan of Mads Mikkelsen. He's a very charismatic actor. I always enjoy him when he pops up. I think probably the first movie I saw him in was Casino Royale as Le Chiffre. But since awesome. Then, he's been in many other things. Obviously, Valhalla Rising is one that I think both of us enjoy. Not everyone enjoys that film, but he's definitely an actor that anytime he pops up, I am tuned in to what he's doing. Hannibal TV show, Doctor Strange, wasted there unfortunately, but he's still good. Just wish a little bit more there would have been nice. So I think Arctic looks great. Yeah, this is a movie for him to basically command the screen on his own, and he's an actor fully capable of doing that. I think visually it looks awesome, very stunning, and I'm looking forward to seeing that film. I thought the trailer for Polar. Let me somewhat back up and say that I think we actually talked about this a long time ago on the podcast when this had been announced, and I liked the concept of it. I liked the idea of it, and I do think that what I said about it being, like this hyper stylized version of John Wick is still accurate, but I thought this was a dog shit trailer personally. I thought it looked horrible.
Looks interesting. I'll watch it.
I mean, I'm sure it. I don't know. I'm not going to say I'm sure it'll be fine.
I don't know about the glove thing. The glove thing looked kind of corny, where he's kind of like he's sawing people down with the laser gloves.
Yeah, I just this like it was something that I'm like, on paper this sounds cool to me, and then I watch the trailer and I'm like, this looks just low budget and bad. I don't know. It could just be the trailer, but I was not feeling it. I felt like the visual style was way too all over the place. Like the uses of the oversaturated colors in comparison to like the darker color palette through most of the trailer. It looked, I don't know, it looked amateur hour to me. I'm hoping I'm wrong. I don't know. I think we just talked about a Netflix film and Buster Scruggs that I think was very good. But on the whole, I see, it seems like a lot of Netflix films just, I don't know, they don't seem to be up to snuff. I would say.
Man, I don't know. I like a lot of Netflix things. I mean, they make a lot of shit. Maybe. I think
it's probably just a case of quantity over quality for me, where they put a ton of shit out there,
right?
And some of it is good. Some of it,
some of it's really
is
fucking
just good. But I just find that on the whole, this to me strikes me as something that I'm like, yeah, okay. Well, this is more of a. Was it that Jared Leto one that came out last year? I think
that one was real shit.
I don't know. It just seems misguided to me. But I don't know.
I'll watch it.
It's a trailer.
I'll tell you how
it's a trailer. So yeah, I'll let you take the honors of watching it, and maybe I'll follow your recommendation. But I don't have a good feeling about it. Let's put it that way. But I like Maz, so if I do go in on it, it's for my boy Mads. You know what I mean? So.
What do you got? You got other news, man?
I do. I have lots of HBO news, actually. I mean, not a lot, but a couple pieces of news. I think that's not bad. So the first thing I wanted to bring up was this about a minute-long preview of coming attractions for 2019 on HBO. So it was a look ahead to some of their biggest titles they're going to have coming out this year. True Detective is right around the corner. Should be starting, I think, sometime this month on HBO. And then we got brand new footage of Game of Thrones Season 8, our first ever footage of Watchmen, and a couple others. But I think Game of Thrones and Watchmen for me are probably the big ones where I'm like, okay, yes, okay, these are the things that appeal to me the most. These are the things I'm probably looking forward to the most. So, Game of Thrones, and worth mentioning, it's like 5 seconds at most for both of these things. Very, very brief glimpses at both of these things. I'm sure we'll get a full trailer for Game of Thrones, hopefully within the next month or so, because it's supposed to be debuting in April, so I imagine we'll get trailer release date, because this is literally all we've seen from the new season so far. Then again, it's not like they need to show us new footage to sell anyone. Like, you're either in or you're not at this point. I don't know that a trailer is going to like sway like a fence viewer of like, oh, I guess I'll watch all 7 seasons now, like because of this 8th season trailer. It doesn't really work like that.
But you should.
Yeah, you should. Game of Thrones is absolutely, That's if there's anything that's be a part of the human race, much like Infinity Wars, I think Game of Thrones it might be the television equivalent of that. Yeah. So we see Daenerys Targaryen in Winterfell, and we see her interacting with Sansa Stark for the first time in the series. So that's pretty novel. It's pretty groundbreaking. I guess would this also be the first, I guess, Game of Thrones spoilers. Sorry for anyone that is like, what the fuck, man?
Not part of the human race, right? Go ahead.
Yeah. I think, wouldn't this also be the first time that we've seen Daenerys in Westeros?
Wasn't she, no, she was on, wasn't she on fucking Stannis' island?
Yeah, I guess that's, well, is that where she was staying through part of the show? I mean, obviously she was born on, I think
Dragonstone,
Dragon Rock.
No, that's like very much a technicality. That's not what I meant. But I think that's where she came across, and I think she was right there first. And then Homeboy, that's exactly what happened. She came to the island, and then
that's right. Well, she was in King's Landing, right?
Yeah, I think they had that meeting there.
Yeah.
With the White Walker or whatever. And then I think Jon Snow came to the island and met her and stuff. It was, god damn, I'm so excited.
Okay.
I'm so excited.
I'm definitely wrong. I will definitely admit that I'm wrong. But I also think that it brings up a valid point of, I think I might need to rewatch some of these shows before this new season premieres. You feeling me?
I'm kind of feeling you. You want to kind of do like a refresher, like a bonus episode refresher?
Well, it would be quite an extensive project to undertake, but I mean, I kind of feel like maybe it's now or never with Game of Thrones season 8. Like,
That's it. You're either going to do it, like, if we're going to do it,
you got to do it properly.
Exactly. We do it before the release of the series finale. Fuck yeah, that's epic, dude. We should do it. Well, there's only one opportunity when we can do this. Let's do it.
All right. It's done.
You heard it here first, folks.
It's not done, but it will be. It will be done. And then Watchmen.
It's a little weird. What's up with the Golden Mask people and the cops?
So I'm not sure. So I think this is like a pseudo sequel to the graphic novel, as far as I understand it, with Jeremy Irons playing an older version of a certain character from the graphic novel. We see someone wearing a mask that seems vaguely Rorschach-esque without kind of the moving ink blot patterns. I don't know if it's like a copycat vigilante or something like that, because, again, I guess Watchmen spoilers for anyone that hasn't read the book or seen the movie. It's the same ending. Rorschach is no longer amongst the mortals by the end of that story. So, I don't know. I mean, I think this is probably some years after that, in a world where a giant squid has descended upon Manhattan and somehow united the world's powers. But clearly things are still a little wacky, like, because it looks like those people with the masks are like the police force. So I don't know if it's like a Big Brother type situation and like they're just like faceless officers, or I don't know.
It's kind of weird.
What the hell's going on. It looks very wacky. But I'm interested in it. I'm definitely curious to see what Damon Lindelof does with this. I've heard very good things about his work on The Leftovers, which was also with HBO. Never watched it myself. It does star an actor who makes an appearance in Bumblebee to make somewhat of a connection there. In Justin Theroux. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, what'd you think? I know you said it looks weird and wacky. It just
looks kind of like a little bit of wackadoodle, just a little bit of wackadoodle. But it's kind of, I don't know. I feel pretty interested about it. I like wackadoodle, man. I think it piques interests, I don't know about the Rorschach mask. I think it looks kind of like you said, almost like somebody trying to, like a copycat. But I don't know. We'll see what happens. I kind of peaked out right around the Game of Thrones, and then everything else kind of got pushed out of my mind a little bit.
It was noise. Yeah. Well, I was going to ask you if there was anything else that came to mind when you were watching this, but it sounds like that's going to be a no. So I will take this opportunity to talk more about Game of Thrones, since that seems to be a little bit more up your alley.
Okay.
We have more details on the prequel series that we're going to be getting after Game of Thrones makes its long-awaited conclusion later this year. So the prequel, called The Long Night, we've talked about it previously. Naomi Watts headlining it. We have a full cast announced for it, and we have some of the creatives behind it as well, beyond what we already knew. So cast-wise, I think a lot of these names aren't going to ring any bells for you, but I am going to name them out of respect for their roles, because before long we're going to watch this show and we're going to know these folks. You know what I mean? So,
No, that's right.
So joining Naomi Watts and the previously announced Josh Whitehouse as well. I don't know if we talked about him. If we did, again, another name. I'm like, okay, well, good for him. He's on this show. Naomi Ackie is going to be in this. Denise Goff, Jamie Campbell Bower, who you might recognize as the younger Grindelwald from Fantastic Beasts. Sheila Ateem, Ivano Jeremiah, Georgie Henley, who was, I think, Lucy in the Narnia films from like a decade ago.
Which one was Lucy?
She was the middle, or the younger sister.
Okay.
I think. Lucy Pevensey.
What's her real name again? I'm sorry?
Georgie Henley is the actress.
Okay. I'm on the IMDb now.
I mean, she's older now, so.
Okay, yeah, I recognize her face, yeah. Oh, yeah, that's cool. Okay.
Alex Sharp and Toby Regbo are the last two. Apparently the latter also made an appearance in Fantastic Beasts, The Crimes of Grindelwald, but I could not tell you who he played. I think maybe the bigger
played a young
piece of
Dumbledore.
news. Oh, okay. Well, there you go. There you go. Thanks for those quick fire IMDb skills. Very handy. Very handy. Jane Goldman is the showrunner of this. She is working with, she's working on this alongside Game of Thrones author George R.R. Martin. And S.J. Clarkson is going to be directing the pilot episode, and she will also executive produce the series. So she has previously worked on The Defenders, Jessica Jones, and she was... I think the key word there is was set to direct a Star Trek sequel, a movie sequel.
Okay.
We talked about it a while back that Star Trek 4 was reportedly going to center around a time travel kind of plot where Kirk encounters his father, who was portrayed by Chris Hemsworth in the first Star Trek film, the Abrams film.
Yeah, I heard that didn't pan out, right?
So it seems that in the wake of this, basically, it seems like Star Trek was not getting off the ground. It seems like maybe Paramount's shifting gears and like, we're just going to do a bunch of TV shows. They got Discovery on the air right now. The Picard series is coming out. I think they're maybe doing an animated series too. So like Paramount's like all in on the television side of Star Trek, and I think they're seeing diminishing returns with the film side of things. And so I think S.J. Clarkson probably got wind of that and said, let me saddle myself to Game of Thrones instead of Star Trek.
That's a solid bet. That's not going anywhere.
Probably a pretty solid maneuver, I would say. Yeah. So it sounds like Star Trek 4 is no more, is the impression I get. I think there's been some articles about that basically saying as much, where it's just like, yeah, I mean, it's just not going to happen. I know they had salary negotiation issues with Chris Pine and I think maybe someone else in the cast. It was kind of just like, pretty hard to make a movie about Kirk if Kirk ain't gonna be in it, So Star Trek 4 is no more. I think sounds like Game of Thrones prequel, however, is full steam ahead. So what do you think?
I'm all in, dude. Yeah, tell me Game of Thrones, I'm in. No problem.
All right. Well, Game of Thrones. You're all in.
I'm all in. That's it. That's all it takes.
All right. Well, I guess that's that then. What other news you got for me?
I got some cool sci-fi news, man. Dave Bautista and Stellan Skarsgard are cast to be in the next Dune movie, directed by Blade Runner 2049's, say his name, Colton.
Denis Villeneuve.
Denis Villeneuve.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Denis Villeneuve. Villeneuve, yes. Him.
It's less good, but...
I tried to add accent. Fuck you. Anyways, yeah. So I'm really excited about that. I think that's really good. I am capable of the IMDb, as you know, and I can probably pull up. Are there roles announced? I think Skarsgard is playing the villain. I have read that. I know you have more familiarity with the novel Dune than I do. Listen, my familiarity with the Dune series is
limited.
It's yeah. I mean, I watched the old school movie, and I read like 100 pages of the book. I am not. To be clear, I am super interested, and I really like what I've read. And I can't say. I mean, I thought what I watched was interesting, and there was something better to be made. But I'm not going to say it was a good movie. But yeah, I don't know. I'm really excited. I know that the Dune franchise is a very rich, inspiring show. And so I'm all about it. So far, the director's outstanding. Skarsgård is cool, and Dave Bautista is fucking cool too. So why not be about it? Are you about it?
I am about it. Yeah. Yeah, Denis Villeneuve is definitely a director that has made nothing but can't miss material for his entire career, as far as I'm concerned. So, for him to take what seems to be a Herculean task in adapting Dune, which, as someone that has not read the book, hasn't read anything in the whole franchise, the impression I get is that it's something that is hard to adapt, and something that requires a extensive budget, I think, to maybe properly tell that story, and perhaps that was a failing of the movie you speak of.
Well, I think it's very expansive. It's a very realized thing, and some of the concepts are they're just hard to grasp. So maybe that's where the budget comes in. But I think if you can tell it properly, I think it's probably really, like, you can. when I watched the old school movie, you could tell that there's just so much going on that it could be something really cool.
I'm definitely in for this. Say, you said I've heard very good things about the first book. Denis Villeneuve, you don't need to tell me anymore. I'm in on that, and the cast that he's assembled so far to me suggests that he knows what he's doing. Timothée Chalamet is playing the lead role. Dave Bautista, as you mentioned, Stellan Skarsgard, as you mentioned, joining it. And I don't know if we ever talked about this, but apparently Rebecca Ferguson is in this as well, and she would be Leggy Bay of the Mission Impossible.
Oh yeah, Leggy Bay.
So between those four names, I'm sold. That's it. That's good enough for me. So yeah, I'll go ahead and officially put it on the record.
Yeah,
I am all in.
He's fuck yeah, he's playing Baron Harkonnen. Yes, okay. I'm sorry, Stellan Skarsgård, I guess, according to IMDb, he's playing the Baron. Which is he's a real shithead, and they're real weird. House of Harkonnen. According to the show, I'm not going to claim to be an expert, but in the show he's
no. That's in the Hollywood Reporter article that he's playing that character.
Okay, that's cool. And Timothée Chalamet is playing Paul Atreides, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
I don't know who this guy is. He was in Interstellar. Okay, he was the kid in Interstellar, I guess. Okay.
He was, yeah. He's been in. Call Me by Your Name last year. He was lead role in that. He was in supporting role in Lady Bird as well. He's done he's been pretty great recently. I will say that. So obviously, pretty big role to land
cool.
for a big budget,
all right.
Sci-fi adaptation. So
and then Leggy Bay is playing. Lady Jessica. Okay, all right. Yeah, I'm all in. That's all I need to know. That's cool. Yeah. So you got any other news, man?
I think we actually each have one last piece of news, both concerning our favorite company in the world, Marvel. But of course, so we have movie Marvel and we have TV Marvel. Which way do you want to go?
TV Marvel, please.
TV Marvel. You want to save best for last? Is that what's happening here?
I'll save that best for last.
Maybe.
Yes.
I don't know. You never know. Well, I will talk about, in that case, Marvel's The Punisher Season 2, which has received an official trailer ahead of its debut on Netflix in literally a week from today. So there was a part of me that I'm like, this shit comes out in a week. Why am I going to watch a trailer for it? And then I was just like, I'm going to watch the trailer for it. I'm glad I did, because it's a really good trailer. In terms of its editing, I think it's a really well-made trailer, but got me pretty excited for The Punisher Season 2. Now, we all know this will almost certainly be the last season of The Punisher, and so that puts a bit of a damper on the mood watching this, and probably will watching it when it actually comes out on Netflix, but it looks like more Frank Castle goodness, man. It seems like he's sporting the Punisher vest a little bit more. We see Billy Russo's back in action. He had an excellent plastic surgeon that fixed him up nice and good, so he's just got a few scars on his face. I don't know, he's not really earning that Jigsaw moniker from the comic books, but maybe they're going for more of a psychological Jigsaw take on the role, which isn't too bad. Or it could just be a TV budget concern. It's probably that. I thought it looked good. Yeah, violent.
Somebody's getting their head smashed on a knife, it looks like.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm here for the John Bernthal rage yells. I'm all in. I need that at least one an episode, and then I'm in.
That's it.
I'm
all
sold.
It takes.
So yeah, I think this looks awesome. What do you think?
Oh yeah, I'm all about it. Definitely. Kind of sucks that there's not going to be any more there, but
we don't know that for sure.
Nah, we're pretty confident. Yeah, we're pretty confident.
We have a gut feeling. Let's say that.
Yeah, but we'll see. We'll see how it is, because it could be giant dog shit, but I doubt it. I think it's going to be cool.
Yeah, no, I think the first season was great. I think it was definitely in the upper tier of the Netflix, the Marvel Netflix universe.
Really enjoyed it. It's perfect casting. Perfect casting.
Yes, indeed.
I have some news too about Marvel. A little bit of Marvel.
Yes.
A little tidbit. Yeah, a little tidbit of Marvel stuff. We got a special look at Captain Marvel, man.
I did. I saw it when it aired live on television during the college football national championship.
I did not catch it live during the national championship.
In which Clemson demolished Alabama, as a side note. I know you're a big football big sports fan. It's not baseball, which I know is your favorite sport, unfortunately. So I know you definitely would have seen it if it was during baseball. But this aired live in the national championship game, and it's about a minute and a half. It's called a special look, but it's pretty much a trailer.
That's pretty much what it is.
Another trailer for Captain Marvel.
Yeah, and it looked pretty cool. I am really eager to see Brie Larson fly around with a fucking mohawk. Real excited about that.
I think we already previously established you were all in for the mohawk. And it seems that you're holding true to your word. Okay, yeah. I respect it. I don't disagree with you, and I respect it.
She does this like pose where she's like on a knee and she's like pumping out photon blasts, as we learn in the special look that they're called photon blasts. And she's pumping out these photon blasts, and she's wearing this green costume. She's got this mohawk, and it's like, oh man, total Bay, Mohawk Bay with photon blasts.
Mohawk Bay. She has earned her moniker.
All about it. Anyways, it looks really cool. Comes out in March. I could not be more hyped about it. I mean, I think it's going to be an outstanding movie. Excited to cover that one in March.
Agreed. Yeah, I think this is probably the best trailer or any piece of marketing material we've received for this movie. Because I feel like this one, it seems like it makes it seem a little bit more unique on its own. I think the other ones kind of were a little bit more standard trailer edit. This one has a little bit more humor infused to it. And then we still have, some of those fantastic shots of like Carol going full Super Saiyan at the end, and flying around in space with being a Mohawk Bay, flying around in space being a badass. And I'm all in on this. I was already all in on this. It's not like that's the goalposts have shifted in any meaningful way, but this definitely makes me feel like, okay, yeah, I think we got another winner over at Marvel.
Yeah.
So
it looks that way. So that's all I got for news, man. You got any more news?
I could make something up, but that's all I have on the paper. So I think it's probably best if we just move on to Bumblebee at this point.
All right, let's move on to Bumblebee. Bumblebee tuna. Bumblebee tuna.
Bumblebee tuna. Bumblebee tuna. Oh, chitty chitty bang bang, chitty chitty bang bang. Chitty. Ace Ventura bonus episode. We're gonna put that one in our back pocket too. Yes.
Comes out of the rhino. Just a curious little rhino.
Just classic films.
Brings joy to my heart every time I think about it. Oh, goddamn. Whew. Anyways, right. Bumblebee, more joy.
Yes, Bumblebee. More joy, you say? Well, we'll get into it. Bumblebee, as you mentioned, was not directed by Mr. Michael Bay. And coincidentally, it also doesn't seem to feature that many gratuitous ass shots. Is that also a coincidence? I will let our listeners decide for themselves. It was directed by Travis Knight, who previously directed Kubo and the Two Strings over at Laika, which was a favorite of ours when it came out. And maybe he knows what he's doing. Yeah, I'm gonna say maybe. It was written by Christina Hodson, and it stars Haley Steinfeld along with John Cena and the voices of Angela Bassett and Justin Theroux. And Bumblebee, Charlie, an 18-year-old
Justin Theroux.
Struggling. Yes, Justin Theroux.
Who's that?
He was the lead of The Leftovers, as I mentioned earlier in the episode. He was also a co-writer of Tropic Thunder and Iron Man 2, and what else is it on? He was the wizard in Your Highness. That's a weird pull, if you ever saw that, with James Franco and Danny McBride.
No, I never saw that.
It's not a good film, but I kind of weirdly enjoy it at the same time. But he's fun in that.
I see who it is now. Okay.
He was married to Jennifer Aniston, I believe, for a portion of his life.
That's exactly where I know him from. Exactly.
So that's
those e-magazines.
Well, there you go.
That's it. Okay.
Well, there you go. Yes, Bumblebee. Charlie, an 18-year-old struggling with the death of her father, finds a friend in Bumblebee, a transformer forced to flee from his homeworld and seek refuge on Earth.
Can you read that all like Optimus Prime?
Bumblebee, a transformer.
Do you want me to go back and do the whole thing?
Yeah, just
Charlie.
Yes, the whole thing.
Okay.
You can read the whole thing.
All right. Well.
Charlie, an 18-year-old struggling with the death of her father.
17-year-old. But she's 18-year-old. She has a birthday in the middle of the movie. Continue, Optimus.
It's about 10 minutes into the movie.
finds a friend in Bumblebee, a transformer forced to flee from his homeworld and seek refuge on Earth.
Is that good? Does that satisfy your cravings?
That'll suffice, yeah.
All right, very good. Stock box office for
Bumblebee.
pretty soft opening for this. $21.6 million opening, which I talked about it already a little bit. Very busy Christmas season that it opened with Aquaman, Mary Poppins. It was number 3 over its debut weekend, and it actually just crossed the $100 million domestic total. So it is, as of now, obviously it hasn't had its whole theatrical run. It is the lowest grossing film in the Transformers franchise, but it is actually the leggiest film in the entire franchise, and by that I mean that most of them are very front-loaded, big openings, very quick drop-off after people realize, nope, hey, this one fucking sucks too. Yep. I was like, fool me 7 times, fool me, whatever the old adage goes, except with Transformers, it's happened every fucking time.
Without fail.
So it crossed $100 million. I think The Last Night, which was the 5th one, which neither of us have seen, by the way, and maybe it's worth putting a check mark there. We could maybe talk about previous experiences with Transformers films, because I think we've already kind of somewhat let on how we felt about the franchise leading up to this point. But it might be a good point of context for where this movie kind of comes in based on expectations, how our expectations, whether they were founded or unfounded. But it's made 5 times its opening weekend so far. And I think that it might actually end up outgrossing The Last Night domestically by the end of its theatrical run, if it keeps its current pace. I hope so too, because again, we'll get into it. So I don't want to. I'm ready. I'm jumping at the bit. I'm like, I gotta go in on these fucking movies because they suck. But it stands at $307.9 million worldwide as of recording this, which is not a bad figure. There was actually an article I saw. It was, I think, a Viacom CEO basically said that The Last Night lost them money, and this one has actually turned a profit for them because it was a cheaper movie to make, and it's a good sign. Let's put it that way. It's good that the bad movie loses money for you. I think it's better that the movie that
is good.
I don't want to, maybe it's good. Maybe it is. I don't know. Let's say it's definitively better than those. We'll talk about maybe how better it is in just a second, but it is nice to see that even if its box office receipts aren't as spectacular as they once were for the Transformers franchise, that this is the one turning a profit for it. That's, I think, refreshing. So let's briefly discuss our experience with the Transformers saga. Does that sound like a good idea to you?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be short.
It could be frustrating, just to try to get it off our chest, but it's a bad franchise in terms of the films. I don't want to disparage the actual Transformers franchise itself. I think the cartoon is enjoyable.
So if we're talking about that, first introduction, you probably don't know this. First introduction to Transformers for me was actually the comics. I had a small bunch of comics. As I'm talking, really, I was little, but I remember having this really fancy comic, and it was like a foiled cover, and it was almost like it wasn't a pop out book, but Optimus' face split open, and there was a bunch of shit going on inside of his face, and it was all foiled. It was a really nice comic. And that was the first introduction to Transformers that I ever had. I don't know where that comic book came from, but it was cool. And then on Toonami, there was a lot of the cartoons, and I watched a bunch of those cartoons. And I never played with the toys, so I've always been, and I didn't buy any more comics. That was the only comic I ever had. So first and foremost, I was the cartoon guy. I watched several different iterations of the cartoons. And I was when younger. I haven't watched them recently, but in grade school and all, when I'm elementary school, middle school, I watched a lot of Transformers cartoons, and I remember them fondly. So, but then Michael Bay happened, and I watched the first movie.
Yes, he did.
And I watched the second movie, and then I fell asleep in the third movie in the theaters.
It was very long.
and that was the last one I saw. The last one that I actually watched was the third one.
Okay, so you're 2 behind. And when I say 2 behind, I mean you only watched 3 and you have no intention of watching the other 2. Is that accurate?
I actually never watched 3. I fell asleep and then never bothered to rewatch it.
Oh, okay. So you've only seen parts of the third one then.
That's
so you've
correct.
seen effectively 2 and some percentage of the third.
Correct.
But that's enough. In fact, you actually might have gotten out at, when the getting was good, you might have gotten out.
That last one, the third
good.
one was just. I remember just explosion after explosion after. It is just incredibly boring. Like, it was mind numbing. I remember that.
It's a pretty good description of this entire film franchise to date. I would say mind numbing. I mean, I myself have not seen The Last Night, the 5th one. I have seen all of the first 4. I was conscious through all of them, unfortunately. I don't mind the first film. I don't think it's great, but I think it's easily the most charming of any of them. But with the second one on, I don't want to say they got progressively worse, because I actually think the third one's better than the second one, but it has issues of its own, some of the same issues that the second one, and the first one for that matter, had. But the fourth one was just, my God, was it a piece of shit. It was unwatchable. It was so bad. I thought, it was out with Shia LaBeouf. Shia LaBeouf was banished from the franchise after the third one.
Why?
They bring in Marky Mark. I don't know. I think they just kind of wanted to do kind of something new with it. So they brought Marky Mark in as the lead for the fourth one.
Okay.
I don't love Marky Mark, I'm going to be honest, but he's fine.
He's all right. Nothing wrong with Marky Mark.
I don't love Shia LaBeouf either. But it was kind of like this. It's not really a reboot, but it was kind of like, hey, let's do a sequel that's not like a direct plot connection. But the fourth one was just incomprehensibly bad, and I'm offended that it exists. I'm offended that someone being Michael Bay thought that it was acceptable to make that film and release it in that state. I'm embarrassed that Paramount decided to do it. I mean, I guess they just probably wanted to recoup as much money as they could. So maybe from a business standpoint, it was probably better to release it than to just bury it. But I think from a moral standpoint, they had a moral obligation to not release that piece of shit. And they sure as fuck had a moral obligation to not make another fucking one in the same vein with Michael Bay.
That was worse.
I didn't see the fifth one.
According to Rotten Tomatoes, it was worse.
It's hard for me to fathom that it could be worse, but I had that same thought about the second one, and then the fourth one came out, and I'm like, well, fuck me. These guys really outdid themselves. They somehow made a worse film. That is actually impressive in some ways.
According to Rotten Tomatoes, Age of Extinction, which is the one you're referring to, ranks out at 19%. And with an audience score of 51%. The Last Night scored 15% with an audience score of 44%.
Yeah, I think it's clear that there was diminishing returns in terms of audience reception, in terms of critical reception, in terms of the box office reception. And so let us pray that we never make the agreement to do a Transformers franchise bonus episode. I don't know that I could stomach it. So maybe that will be all we say on those, and maybe this is a good time to say out with the old and end with the new, and talk about Bumblebee. Because this is a movie that I think started as a prequel to those films, and so I'm sure our listeners can pick up on it. That Andrew started to laugh, and I'm like, I'm not really saying anything that funny, and not anything that outrageous. And I heard a little noise, which to me signals that, all right, he's sending me a message, and I'm like, all right, we got another action shot of Bay filming his film, and lo and behold, we have a new shot of Bay in action. I think this is from Transformers 5, if I'm not mistaken. And he's directing the shit. I mean, he's directing the shit out of that girl there, man.
The famed photo comes from. God damn!
And then there's the classic. There's the classic Bay, the Bay action pose, fucking shouting into his megaphone.
That's from Age of Extinction. Oh, he's like a goddamn rock star, Michael Bay. Oh, man. He doesn't give a shit what he makes. Look at him. He's got explosions and helicopters and a megaphone.
Dude's rolling around in millions, so it seems that perhaps he made the correct career decision. Well, maybe we have had some failings of our own. I don't know. But again, from a moral standpoint, I don't know. There's some questionable things happening. Oh, there's a middle picture. I didn't even see this one. Oh, look at him. He's very
tactical. He's a tactical
very
man.
Authoritative with his hands. Look at his fingers. Those are some long fingers. Anyway,
Michael Bay. Oh man.
Yes, Michael Bay sucks.
So good.
Not a good director. At the very least, we can say that he has made probably 4 very bad films in the Transformers franchise alone, and one that is perhaps mediocre in the first one. But yes, can we talk Bumblebee? I'm done. I'm gonna get upset if I keep talking about those films.
Okay, yeah. Let's
get upset. I don't want to get upset.
I got tears coming from my eyes. God damn.
I can get ranty. You've lifted my spirits a little bit, but at the same time, I see Michael Bay directing, and it frustrates me. Bumblebee. Let's talk about Bumblebee. Good Lord, we've been talking for a while. We really haven't substantively talked about Bumblebee, and this is a movie that is very fundamentally different from those other films in the sense that it's a Transformers movie that is actually ... drum roll good.
That's right.
What? Is such a thing even possible? Yes, it is. So that's my very brief thought on this. Let me turn it over to you. I mean, do you like Bumblebee? Do you agree? Do you think this is a good Transformers movie?
I think I'm going to give a Bumblebee, and I haven't done any bit of looking. I need to look on what I've actually watched this year, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say Bumblebee is the most surprising film of 2018.
Hey, now. Save it for the next episode, Bucko. No,
I will save it for the next episode.
We'll talk about it again, I'm sure. But yeah.
Okay, I think there's internet receipts on this podcast about me, John Cena, fucking Bumblebee, another Transformers movie. Jesus Christ, it's gonna be shit.
There was a healthy amount of skepticism to put it mildly.
And I was thoroughly blown away. Now, I've only seen it once. Maybe a sprinkle of that could be because my expectations were so low, but I doubt it. I think this is a very well-made film. I think that the soundtrack is outstanding. I thoroughly enjoyed the soundtrack of this film. I thought that it was refreshing, and I thought it was a very, very, very good direction to have a female lead. I think that's probably one of my favorite things.
And we should probably specify a female lead that was not overly sexualized in the way that any female character in the previous films was.
I don't think there was any sexualization at all. And she was just a very charismatic, she was a very cool character. And she was played excellent. Haley is awesome. This is the lady from a Coen Brothers film. She played in True Grit when she was a little lady. And she also sang a song on the movie. You know about that?
Yeah, she's a full-blown pop star in her own right.
Yeah, she's a fucking platinum artist. I had no idea about that. I had to look that up. Haley, at the age of, I think she's like 23 years old or something, she has quite the career ahead of her. She is somebody to definitely watch out for because she's an outstanding actress, and apparently she's a pop star too. So that's cool.
Yes. Just side note on that, she was the voice of Spider-Gwen in Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, if you weren't aware.
Yeah, okay.
And as a partial recommendation, True Grit obviously is a good recommendation for, I think she was nominated for an Oscar for her role in that.
I think so too.
She might have been like 14 or 15 when she was playing that character. Like, that's wild. But Edge of 17 is fantastic. I know I've recommended it to you previously. It's with Woody Harrelson.
Yeah.
I loved it. I think it came out in 2016, if I want to say. I think, and I really liked that one.
What's that all about?
It's like a high school coming of age kind of comedy, like dramedy, I guess you could say. so she's 16 going on 17, and she's not the popular kid in high school, and she has this kind of bond with Woody Harrelson, who's her teacher. They kind of have this dynamic relationship with each other.
Okay.
Where they play off each other very well. It's basically just kind of her like, growing up, and then like being like, hey, high school kind of sucks and people don't like me. What do I do? And I think that's kind of more or less it. And I don't think this is really a spoiler. Her best friend starts sleeping with her brother, and that complicates things too. So it's good. It's worth a watch. Absolutely. I don't know if it's streaming or anything like that. I have the Blu-ray, which I realize doesn't really help you very much.
No, but I'm going to go ahead and I just bought it.
All right. Well, there you go. Boom.
Yeah.
Anyways, bottom line is she is great. She
Haley's
absolutely
great.
has some of the brightest futures. I I just looked at her page. She's 22 years old and she's fucking owning it. Like, that's awesome. It's
really
it's
exciting.
amazing.
Yeah.
Like it's another thing where I'm just like, shit, what am I doing with my life? She's 22 and she's amassed this career already, and like, oh man, it's awesome.
And
Good for her, man.
and she is easy on the eyes. She's pretty cool.
She's pretty cool. Hey man, I think you might have decoded something there. Phew.
Did I just do what?
71 episodes in, I think you might have revealed the meaning of the word cool. We've been so discreet about things up until this point.
Yeah, well,
Yes.
what else?
You're not wrong, but
what else is there? Oh, the fucking now I'm coming from cartoons and stuff, but the way that the Transformers were actually animated and drawn in this film are completely different than the way they were in other Transformer movies.
Yeah, it's almost like you could actually see what they looked like and watch them transform and understand where the parts of the car were actually moving around. It's not just gears shifting and messes of mechanical things happening.
Yeah.
They're much, I think they're much blockier and much closer to the Generation 1 cartoon designs.
Yeah, yeah, and it was really cool.
And I feel like they always made the excuses like, oh, those wouldn't work in live action. Well, I think someone just proved you wrong, didn't they? Because they are infinitely better than they were in any of the previous films.
Yeah, no, it's definitely really, really, really good, man. And it's fun, and the characters they feel real. Bumblebee feels real, and Charlie feels real. And the direction of the story is real. It's a real film, man. And it feels good. It feels good, and it's fun, and it's exciting, and it's funny, and I can't recommend it enough, which feels very strange because it's a Transformers movie, and I don't think I've ever been able to recommend a Transformers movie.
I think it feels good because there's years of frustration leading to this point, and then you walk in with like, here we go, and I think I actually kind of had to poke and prod you into seeing this thing for a stretch there. I don't think it was high on your priority list. I'm sure you would have seen it eventually, but
I much rather wanted
to
see Vice. If I'm not gonna lie,
I was like, hey, dude, you might want to watch this movie. There might be something there for you. And I wasn't sure if you were going to respond kind of the same way that I did, where I was just like, fuck, okay. I saw the reviews, but I was just like, all right, well, sometimes I agree. Mostly I agree with critics, I will say, but not always. And I found that the critics were definitely on the money with this one, I would say. So it's refreshing to say that there's a Transformers movie that's good. And yeah, it's hard to not recommend this movie because I think there's a lot to like about this movie.
Yeah. It's outstanding. It's very good.
I think my favorite thing about this movie is that there's heart to it. I think there's a ton of heart to it, and I think that it captures that in both the human and the robot sides of the film, which I think has always been lacking in the previous films, where like I felt like the Shia LaBeouf and Megan Fox characters were kind of like a drag on like the first Transformers movie. Like you're like, I just want to see big robots and transforming and punching and shit. And like I enjoyed that aspect of the movie, but I always found that the counterpart to that was, lacking. And I felt like in this movie doesn't work without, of course, Haley Steinfeld's performance, but it doesn't work without the role that they the character that they've crafted for
Right.
Charlie.
And
The depth to her character, her background, her struggles with
and her
life,
growth,
and her growth with Bumblebee at that too.
Yeah.
That's what makes it work, and that's how they kind of find each other at a time of need, and we see them go on this really emotional journey together, and it works because you can believe both characters because they feel real,
And
they
it's
feel
personal.
human.
Yeah.
And it's a very personal story, and I think that adding that personal touch, maybe that's what's been missing this whole time, has just been kind of this soulless endeavor to, robots fighting, and we're like, well, who cares about the fucking humans? But then they waste so much time on the humans. It's like, well, if you're gonna invest that screen time in it, which you probably have to do from a budgetary standpoint, because you can't literally just have 17 hours of robots fighting each other. That's $1 billion movie to make. You have to craft it in a way that people are going to be invested in watching these humans do their thing, and it's in a way that it's not going to be like, okay, well, when's the robot coming back? I never felt like that in this movie.
No.
I was always, to be fair, they're together a lot in the movie, so it's never really that much of a concern. But there was never a point in this movie where I'm like, let's go back to the other thing, or let's go to the other thing. Like even John Cena in this movie, I felt like that kind of angle to it, I thought was handled pretty well.
And I thought
he was a lot of fun in this movie.
He's got character growth too.
Yeah.
I think everybody that has everybody that's got screen time, it develops. And I think that's something that doesn't happen in a lot of movies.
Mm-hmm. I have one last note before we move into recommendation, which we've more or less covered. But I don't know that we ever talked about this on the podcast, but there was the rumor that Travis Knight, the director of this film, was being eyed for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. And I would say, based on this, if you treat this as his audition for a Guardians sequel to replace James and or Peter Gunn,
take it. Yeah, Peter Gunn.
Yeah, absolutely. He has clearly demonstrated he has the chops to integrate the music into the film in a meaningful way, in a way that doesn't feel Suicide Squad-y. And to infuse a film with the kind of heart that we've seen in both Guardians films. So it's up there with them, sure. Absolutely. So now granted, if the man wants to do some sequels for this, I ain't gonna complain about that. But in the context of that, yeah, absolutely. It's clear that between this and Kubo, he's a force to be reckoned with. So
he did Kubo?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Oh man. That's cool. Kubo was so good. I think I can't remember what cartoon I saw, because I know there's several iterations of the cartoons. But the relationship between Charlie and the male counterpart character, it felt like a return to the cartoons a little bit. From what I can remember. And like I said, I haven't seen the cartoons in a very, very long time. But in the cartoons, there's two people there. There's two kids or two young adults or whatever, helping the Autobots, and I don't know. It kind of felt like that kind of situation, and I was really happy when I watched this movie. I'm gonna roll this into recommendations and say that I recommend you catch this on the Big D. You catch catch it on the Big D for sure. This is a Big D kind of movie, and I think that if you still have the opportunity to catch it on the Big D, to do it, because it's really good, very good movie, and I think it's a good family film. I think it's a good. I don't know. I think there's something there for everyone. Kids would love this movie without a doubt. I think that adults would. There's things there for the adults. So I mean, I think it's a movie worth watching in the best format that you can. I regrettably saw it. I saw it on the small screen. I didn't see it on the Big D. But if I could still catch it on a big format, I would catch it on the biggest format possible. So.
Well, I think therein lies the problem, is that this wasn't the biggest release when it even came out. Aquaman, I think, ended up taken over the IMAX screens, and I don't know that this ever even got an IMAX release, but I 100% agree. See this in theaters, first of all. I pretty much at this point, I think out of necessity, you're going to have to see it in just a regular format.
Yeah.
But if there is the opportunity to see it in any sort of premium screen format, this is a movie that I think would 100% take advantage of that. Now, I saw it twice. I saw it in regular theaters both times. And every time I watched it, I'm like, I wish I was singing this in IMAX right now. Like, especially the opening sequence, which we'll get to very shortly. I was just like, louder. Yeah. I need this to be louder. I need bigger, louder. Like, I was just like, this movie demands that sort of thing. And it has, it's shot in a flat format, 185:1 ratio. And I was just like, bigger. I need bigger. I was just, I don't know. I wanted bigger. I didn't get bigger, but I enjoyed what I had. I just wanted more. Can you believe it, man? So, yes, theaters. Absolutely. See it in theaters. Would you like to cover some full spoilers?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Well, I'm going to bring in Optimus Prime to get us to full spoilers.
Yes, that's good.
It seems appropriate.
Full spoilers for Bumblebee.
No. That came out a little bit Robert Baratheon. You have to try that again.
That was Baratheon?
Yeah, a little bit.
Full. No. I think maybe there's some commonality there. Like Bobby B would be full spoilers. It's a little bit more drunken feeling to it.
Full spoilers for Bumblebee.
Does that satisfy?
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, less boisterous, I suppose. So yes, we're in full spoilers for Bumblebee, and well, I talked about it now. I talked about it just a second ago, so maybe it seems appropriate to start with the opening sequence of this film on Cybertron, which feels very true to the cartoon, and in a way that I'm like,
that you've never seen before.
Where has this been for 5 films? Like,
right?
Come on, guys! Like, it actually reminded me of I don't know if you played any of them, the Cybertron games too.
Yeah.
That they did. I think was it War for Cybertron, Fall of Cybertron. Maybe there might be a third one in there too. But I enjoyed those games. I didn't beat them, but I played them, and I was like, this is great. And those felt very closer, I would say, to the the original cartoon in terms of the designs, characteristics, personalities of the robots. And I was just like, yeah, this is awesome. Like, this is literally the cartoon brought to life. That's so cool. And like the designs were badass. You see Optimus Prime like fucking owning it, man, and like he looks cool. Like he doesn't have a mouth anymore. He's just got his face guard up and he's just talking and it's just moving around a little bit.
He's got that truck. He's got that like that truck thing like blocking his chest. It's cool. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, no,
and he's kicking his ass. Everybody, they're flipping around and shooting each other with big guns and.
Yeah, there's just there's like a wide shot, and there's just fucking lasers going off everywhere, and I'm like, this is cool. Chaos. This is chaos, man. Cybertron is having some tough times. And there's actually a moment in the middle of the film when it goes back and you see a little bit more of Optimus, like after Bumblebee flees, and like Optimus continues to kick ass. And they have like Soundwave, and he ejects fucking Ravage as a tape deck out of his chest, and you see him transform in midair. I'm like, this is the coolest thing ever.
Yeah,
this
really
is so cool. I'm like, this is so cool. Like, why couldn't we have this for 5? Like, we would be so spoiled if we had 5 movies of this caliber. You know what I mean?
Oh, well, like, it wouldn't be a laughable fucking franchise.
Right, like I would make the sacrifice if there was 5 good Transformers films of this caliber, and then we got the Bumblebee film that was closer to the Michael Bay caliber. I'd rather live in that world.
Yeah,
it would deprive us of this film, and that would be a shame. But if the Transformers franchise would not be a laughingstock if they made movies like this for the past decade.
They wouldn't get $21 million on opening weekend.
Yeah,
but
right.
I digress.
It wouldn't get dwarfed by the Aquamans and all that. Which we liked Aquaman. I like this better personally. But.
Yeah, I thought this was a better movie. Yeah, and I think that the one thing that I'm really happy about is the soundtrack of this movie. I know I talked about it before, but the night, I think it takes place in 87?
Yes.
87 looks like a wonderful time to live.
Dude, man, we lived in the wrong era. There's no doubt in my mind at this point.
Right?
I mean, I don't. Well, podcasting wasn't a thing back in the day, so we'd be taking an L there. But shit, man,
man, it looks like
it does.
Just looks so.
I guess it's
cool.
one of those things. A lot of these movies, Stranger Things. They kind of. I don't know if life was so glamorous, but every time I watch anything with like an '80s throwback vibe, and I'm like, those were the fucking times, man. I wasn't even alive, but those were the fucking times.
What a time to be alive.
I do feel like we somewhat missed our calling there. But the good news is, with the advent of Spotify and really the internet in general, we can still enjoy
vicariously
that fantastic 80s music today while still, being able to podcast. So, yeah, the music was great. I really enjoyed it too.
What do you think about John Cena as a villain?
Well, I didn't really see him too much as the quote-unquote villain in this. Like, he's more of an antagonist, I guess. I guess you could somewhat say that those kind of mean the same thing. But I felt like his motivations of there's this alien life form that has
fucked him up,
threatened me, and I understood his standpoint and his hesitancy to like he has the line about like they call themselves Decepticons. Doesn't that set off any red flags for anyone? Like he's kind of a self-aware character that he's opportunistic. He sees a threat, he processes it as a threat, and says, "We need to do something about this." And by the end, he kind of realizes, okay, I've been a little bit short-sighted in how I've kind of viewed, Bumblebee, particularly in the light of all the Transformers that he's encountered. But I felt like I felt like John Cena himself was pretty good in the role. I felt like he had some lines of dialogue in there that were fun, witty. But I felt like, and I saw it again yesterday. There's the point at the end of the film where they're going up against Bumblebee's in like the military base, and they close the door, and John Cena just like walks. He's like, "There's a door in my way," and they just blow it up, and I'm like, "Yes, this is awesome."
Yeah,
it was so 80s movie, like 80s action movie. I loved that. I really enjoyed him. Yeah, I guess I'm saying more as from an acting standpoint. I enjoyed him in this movie, but I felt like, I think that you have. I look at it more as Shatter and Dropkick, the two kind of Decepticon triple changers. I think those are really the villains of this movie, and I think John Cena is just kind of more
their Decepticon. Is that their names?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Kudos to you to know this shit. I don't know that stuff.
Yeah. Well, sometimes I get a little nerdy about these sorts of things, but I enjoyed him as an antagonist. I think he needed some sort of human antagonist. I liked him better than, say, like Agent Simmons from the first Transformers movie, he was just a goofy asshole. John Turturro is fun. He's the Jesus. We've got to respect him for being the Jesus. But I felt like the human antagonists in the Transformers films, prior to this, have all been pretty bad. And I felt like John Cena's character was not amazing, I guess, as a character in and of itself. But I thought,
there's a little bit of growth there, and it was and
there's enough there. I think that. Certainly, I think that it
I thought it was good
from the movie.
I think. Oh, I didn't see cock blockers, but I imagine that as far as my knowledge,
I've heard it's pretty good.
I've heard it's pretty good too. A lot of people seem to think it's really great. But I can tell you that as far as my limited John Cena catalog goes, I think this is easily his best role, and I think he did a really good job with it. I also like the bit of the Decepticons there where I like the way they pop. Blows them up and they kind of splatter everywhere. I thought that was kind of funny. The Decepticons were pretty cool. What do you think about them? I like the purple one with the one eye. What's his name?
Purple one with the one eye.
The purple,
on Cybertron?
Yeah.
That was Soundwave, right? The one he was like the one that ejects the.
Is that right? I can't remember.
The Transformers dog.
Yeah. Is that Soundwave? Okay, that's cool.
Mm-hmm.
And then which one was on Saturn? Was there one on Saturn?
Which one was what?
I seem to remember there was one on Saturn or one of Saturn's moons or something. I thought I saw rings. They were on a planet and they chop off his head or whatever. Do you know what
Cliff Jumper, I think, was the Autobot that they're fighting against. Is that what you're talking about?
Okay, yep. Okay.
He's like, my name is Cliff Jumper. I'm the first lieutenant of the Autobots.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I won't tell you shit. And then And then
Bumblebee fucked it all up.
He sticks his finger in the electrical socket, which was pretty funny.
Yeah. You asked me about the Decepticons. Was that the question to begin with?
Yeah, kind of. I don't know. Loosely, we're just having.
Yeah. Well, I enjoyed all of them. So I think the first Decepticon we see in any sort of real detail is Blitzwing, who's the jet that Bumblebee fights, and kind of when he crash lands on Earth, they have that sequence. He's the one that rips the vocal processor out of Bumblebee.
Okay.
And that whole sequence was so badass. I thought that character was going to be Starscream from the trailer because it looked exactly like Starscream and has the exact same color scheme as Starscream.
Right.
But then he gets killed like 5 minutes into the movie, and I'm like, well, maybe there's a reason it wasn't Starscream. I enjoyed that. I particularly enjoyed the triple changers. So Shatter and Dropkick, that was the Angela Bassett and Justin Theroux Decepticons, the main Decepticon villains. I don't know if we've had a triple changer in the films before.
What's a triple changer?
A triple changer they have three forms. So they have the robot form, they have the automobile form, and they have the flying vehicle form. And I felt like the film did a really good job of making sense of that, in the sense that like
they just
I can turn into a
shit, right?
Well, yeah. Well, I can turn into a jet. Why would I stay in a car mode if I don't need to be? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Like Bumblebee is restricted. I mean, obviously he could have just been the Camaro the whole time and make a joke of it at the end. But with the case of like them, like there's a point, especially in the third act in that final battle, where Dropkick, who's the blue one, he drives out, he turns up into a helicopter, and then he starts firing missiles and shit. You know what I mean? And it's just like, well, yeah, why would he just be in a car? Was he gonna run into Bumblebee? Like, no, he's gonna turn into a fucking helicopter and drop some missiles on his ass. Like, that's cool. I enjoyed that. And like the way that they moved felt very fluid. It felt like they really took advantage of that, like of their capabilities. Were like, yeah, of course they would do that. Like, it's so much more efficient to move around like that than it would be to just drive everywhere
and to lucidly change between the two.
Right, and they did it kind of on a whim, where like they would be a helicopter, and then I think Bumblebee would like shoot back at him, and then he'd go back and like tackle Bumblebee in robot form. It was just the way that they transformed, the way they moved. It was all
logical.
It felt logical. It felt very well thought out. Like they're like, yeah, of course they would do that. Like, why wouldn't you? But I also felt like that was true even of the ones that weren't triple changers, like Bumblebee. There's a sequence again in that third act, and I think this is actually a reference to the cartoon intro. I don't think it was Bumblebee that does it in the intro, but there's a point where he like kind of runs away, drives away in the beetle form, and then as he turns, he does like a 180, and then he like does like a full like tackle out of the car form into like a robot form, and I was just like, dude, that's badass.
That's
like,
cool.
Where has this been the whole time?
Transformers are cool, dude. They're really cool.
Yeah, it's such a creative thing that you could really fully take advantage of, and it seems like to this point it's just been messes of robots fighting each other without any sort of real thought given to, hey, these guys can transform. Why don't they do that more than just like driving around the city? Like, we got to get from point A to point B, so we'll be in car form, but once they get to point B, they fight in robot form. And I'm like, I feel like it makes more sense for them to kind of just naturally fluctuate between the two, as is strategically advantageous to do so. You know what I mean? Like, and
another
this movie
thing I
to me
really
felt like they really did that.
I can't remember. I haven't seen like I disclosed earlier. I haven't seen the other Transformers movies, but the sense of scale seemed it just seemed more grounded, which is a weird thing to say in a Transformers movie. But you know what I'm saying? Like, they didn't seem they were sure they were large, but the scale seemed much more like in the other movies. The other robots seemed significantly larger, and I guess all of them were significantly larger than Bumblebee. Bumblebee was almost like a child Transformer almost. Which leads me to another question. Do you think Transformers grow?
I don't know. I mean, I think
because those other robots were significantly larger than Bumblebee.
Well, like Optimus Prime is like a full semi truck with the trailer, but like I don't think Bumblebee would have the capability of scanning such a thing. Otherwise, it would be like, well, why wouldn't you just be that? I mean, I guess you're faster if you're smaller theoretically, but
why wouldn't you want a badass sword and a badass rifle? Why not?
Right. I assume there are some sort of restrictions. I don't really understand, or I don't think that there's probably that much thought given to the biology of the Transformer.
Conversation for another time.
Yeah, perhaps that could definitely be a bit of a rabbit hole. So yeah, I think that they kind of just have their own unique characteristics, and like, yeah, the Camaro is obviously a different car than the Beetle, but size wise, it's really not that significantly different. So I think it's probably like they're limited. Like obviously, Bumblebee couldn't just scan a jet, or he probably would have done it at some point. You know what I mean? Like the triple changers, like that's kind of unique to them. Is like, hey, we can take on these multiple forms, whereas the other ones are just like, nah, I just drive around and shit.
I feel like if Bumblebee wanted to, he could take on a helicopter though. Helicopter doesn't have propulsion. They just have spinning metal things. I think maybe it's their exposure. Well, there was exposure on the military complex, though. He could have scanned.
Yeah, and he encountered both the Decepticons too. And
could you scan a Decepticon?
I don't know if there's a law against scanning, but as long as they're in vehicle form, I don't know that it would be that indiscernible from.
Once again, we're getting into
the rabbit hole. So let's carry ourselves out of there. Yeah, we could definitely have some conversations. Maybe off air, we'll have some conversations on that. Did you have any issues with this movie? Was there anything you disliked about this movie?
To be honest with you, I can't. I think her brother was kind of a shit. I kind of didn't.
Yeah.
But I mean, he was okay. I can't really. I thoroughly enjoyed the whole movie. I have to say, I am thoroughly blown away by the movie. My expectations were set incredibly low, and I was completely floored. I can't. Maybe on a second viewing, I could probably pick it apart, but I was never bored. Nothing ever jumped out at me as an apparent significant problem. I don't know. I can't really think of anything. I enjoyed it a whole lot.
Yeah. So as someone that has seen it 2 times, I actually felt like my biggest complaint walking out of the first one. I somewhat softened my stance on it, I think, by the time I finished my second viewing. Really, the only thing that jumped out to me, I felt like the Memo character, her neighbor, the potential love interest, he seemed like he was pretty useless in the scheme of things.
Who was it? One more time? One more? Who?
Memo, it was the love interest character, the neighbor, the one that worked at the fair as well.
Yeah, but see, was he? Was he, though? I feel like he was imperative in character growth. Like, she had a best friend that was a giant fucking robot, which is cool, that you communicate through with song, which, who wouldn't want a giant robot that communicates through song? I would. But at the same time, she's her only human counterpart. You know what I mean? And I feel like without him, you would have a short-sighted relationship view with the character. Does that make sense?
No, I agree with you, and I think I probably actually ended up feeling closer to that after a second viewing, where the first time through I was just kind of like,
"What the fuck's this guy doing?" He's a
well, it was more just like, okay, they needed someone for her to interact with, as you say, that's just kind of a human, so that there's that kind of dynamic that's established. And the first time I watched it, I was just like, well, they made it a literal point to write him out of the third act and come back at the end and be like, hey, what I missed? And they're like, you missed everything, you dipshit, go home. Like that was kind of his big moment at the end. He didn't have a big moment. And so I was just kind of like, well, why is that character there in the first place then? And then, in the second time through, as you've talked about, I kind of leaned more towards that viewpoint of like, you needed a little bit something there for Charlie to grapple with, a human relationship for her to grapple with, especially in light of the ending where, she's like, hey, Bumblebee, you've got some shit to take care of, so maybe go do your thing. I think you've helped me figure my life out a little bit. And hopefully I've helped figure your life a little bit.
Goddamn, I thought that was so touching. I like that a lot.
Was it objects in mirror are closer than they appear?
Yeah.
Ooh. Yeah. That was strong. That was a strong moment.
It's good.
Oh, my heart. So good. So good. I'm like,
that's so
really
good, though,
touching
right?
fucking friendship that Charlie and Bumblebee had. Like, man, I feel weird. God, I want to travel back in time and tell myself like dude, listen to this fucking episode on Bumblebee, dude.
Good.
You're going to be like talking about like the heart in a Transformers film and talking about how like the characters are like really good and shit. And like, I was just like, okay, sure.
No, but I mean, it's true though. It's really, it's almost like a like an animated movie, you know, like where you can pull so much character and heart out of a cartoon, where you're pulling so much heart and things out of a robot, a car, like a Volkswagen Bug robot transformer, you know, like you wouldn't think that you would be able to convey those sort of things out of that, but you do. And
well, we were talking when we were doing the art. You mentioned the Iron Giant by name.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, okay. Yeah.
You know, I think that's probably a pretty apt comparison in terms of like the emotionality, and you know, there's Bumblebee is a very quote unquote human character in this, in the sense that he's infused with the same amount of heart that you would theoretically give to any character in any movie. Not always the case, of course, but you know, you want to make your characters feel as real and natural as possible. And Bumblebee felt, even though that he was, you know, an Autobot that can transform between a beetle and a robot mode, he felt human, you know, and he felt believable and honest, and that's why the movie works.
It's fucking person, man. Exactly. And the way things were framed and everything, the story progression, it's just an outstanding movie. And like I said, I don't want to get too much into our next potential episode with looking back on 2018, but this was thoroughly 100% a very pleasant surprise. And it was an excellent way for I think it's probably the last movie I caught in 2018. And did I catch it in 2018? Maybe I caught it in 2019.
Well, technically, I mean, it's still a 2018 release, so it'll count.
That's true. But yeah, it was a, I don't know. I'm very, very happy with this movie. The soundtrack was awesome. I thought the way they shot everything was awesome. It was very kinetic. I thought it was very humorous. I laughed a lot. The jokes were on point. And the character growth on everybody that had screen time was outstanding. Something, like I said, something that you don't normally see. You know, of course, Haley had character growth, and Bumblebee had character growth, but you also had John Cena. You had her mom. Stepdad, I guess, had minimal character growth. I mean, he was kind of I don't know.
It was more the flip side of that, with Charlie kind of reacting to Ron, you know, and being a little bit more acceptive of him.
Exactly, and that was part of her character growth stuff. And it was just really fucking cool, man. It's just a really cool movie. So I agree. That's all I got. It's all I got on Bumblebee. Go see that shit. It's awesome.
Indeed. I actually have a couple more lines of thought that I want to talk about. Yeah, go ahead, man.
Talk about it.
So the first one is this a prequel or is this a reboot?
I feel like this is a reboot.
I agree. And I think I might have said as much earlier. I think this began as a prequel, and I believe it was intended to be a prequel. And at a certain point, the decision was made to say, you know what? Fuck those other films. We're going to do our own thing. Like, why would we be beholden to a franchise that's not beloved, that has these diminishing returns? Let's do our own thing, make something good. God forbid we make something good in the Transformers franchise, and let's see what happens. And lo and behold, you have a film that turns a profit. That's a good thing. And you have a film that actually ends up being good. And so, yes, I think this absolutely has to be considered a reboot. If nothing else, to erase the memories of the previous films. But I think that there's a lot of stuff in the context of this film that would contradict, I believe, some of the other films.
Yeah, like the Autobots and everybody came to Earth to search for the Allspark, right? Wasn't that the thing?
Right. So in the first Transformers film, we see a lot of the Autobots come to Earth in the 2000s, which obviously we see that happen in the sort of post-credits sequence here. We'll get to that in just a second. Yeah, so, well, I guess we get to it now. We might as well. So the post-credit sequence happens literally after the directorial credit, which is a very odd decision, I would say. I don't know why they didn't just keep that whole sequence in the film. Like, if you're literally going to have it 5 seconds after your credits start, just put it in the movie.
That's the one where they're walking through the woods, right?
Yeah, and we see Charlie has finally fixed the Corvette and is driving it off into the sunset, basically. So, yeah, so that is a big contradiction right then and there so they showed up 20 years before they showed up, okay? And there's also, I haven't actually seen it, but in the last night, from what I understand, and brings me great shame to say this, apparently there's a sequence with Bumblebee fighting in World War II.
What? What?
So that Look, we.
No.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Actually, I think the movie opens in World War II. Actually, no. The movie opens in like medieval times. That's what it is. There's Transformers fighting alongside like King Arthur and shit. That's what that movie begins with. Because I don't know if I think you were there. Henry had to remind me of this. When we saw Spider-Man: Homecoming, they accidentally played the first few minutes of Transformers, and then they were like, "Oh shit, we started the wrong movie." But it was weird because it was like, what the fuck movie is this? And it was like Arthurian times with fucking Transformers.
That happened
and shit.
with us, didn't it?
It's just wild. Yeah, that's when we saw Homecoming. So
Yeah, I remember that. What the fuck is this? And I remember somebody, no, not this. I heard
people were very upset because it was Transformers that was playing, and we cannot fault them for their opinion. But yes, so I think that the whole Transformers lore is just messy to begin with those, and like I think there was a sequence in that film, I guess I read about it, that Bumblebee is like fighting in World War II, which what the fuck is that? That's dumb.
And this is obviously
and clearly here this is clearly I would say Bumblebee's first time on Earth. So I think at some point I read that like the Cybertron sequence was, I don't know if it was a reshoot, but it was added late in the game where it wasn't part of the original script, and then they're like, well, let's do this, let's do something like that. Now there's obviously elements from the other films where you can kind of see maybe where it started, where the whole the Bumblebee not being able to speak, can only communicate through the radio. That's straight from the movies. That's not in the show. That's not in the TV show.
No.
That's from the movies. There's actually, weirdly enough, a young version of Agent Simmons, the John Turturro character from the original franchise, that shows up in this for like one scene. So that to me feels like a remnant of a script of like, look, it's Baby Simmons or whatever. So there's little things here and there that are like, I think this was at one point that, and then at some point, like the decision was, again, like I said, was just made like, fuck that. Why? Why? Like, why would we saddle ourselves to that? That doesn't make any sense whatsoever. So, and I think that was absolutely the correct call. So on that note, what are your thoughts on a potential sequel to this? Do you want a Bumblebee 2? Do you want an Optimus Prime movie? Do you want a Transformers full-on reboot with all of them in it? I mean, what do you think?
Well, I mean, at the end of that post-credit sequence, all the Transformers are coming to Earth. Or, not all of them, but, 9 of them? I think 9 Transformers are coming to Earth. I think it would be cool to have a standoff movie. I think that would be pretty cool. Right? Where the Autobots are trying to, blend in with, trying to quote-unquote be robots in disguise on Earth. And
robots in disguise.
and the Decepticons come pursuing after them. I think that would be fascinating. I think that'd be cool. And I would take that. I would take a total reboot. There's nothing wrong inherently with Transformers. I think Transformers are fucking great, but I just don't want more of what we've had for however many movies Michael Bay directed. I don't want that anymore.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's apparent that we're moving past that. Could you imagine a Transformers movie set in the same time as Captain Marvel in the 90s? That'd be cool as shit.
Really? Yeah, 90s. Yeah, that'd be fun.
Yeah, it'd be really fucking cool. So let's do it.
Yeah, I agree. Would you bring back like Charlie for a Transformers movie, or do you feel like her story's concluded?
No, I think Charlie, and I think you take that the other kid, and you continue their growth. I think there's room for growth in those characters. Just like normal people don't have limited growth, man. They're constantly growing. I think you need to obviously adjust adjust what you want to focus on. Obviously we're not focusing on Charlie's growth in dealing with the death of her father and reconnecting with everybody around her. We're not dealing with that anymore. What are we going to deal with in the next chapter? But I think that those characters played off of each other well, and I think that there's room for growth there. I also think you could bring back John Cena. I think he's applicable. And I think you could probably make a decent little franchise. You could redo a little trilogy action. You know what I'm saying? I think you could probably build 3 movies out of there.
It's not too late. Yeah, I think so too. I guess probably my question was more centered on, do you do something a little, like I think, yes, absolutely. You've established the Autobots are on Earth, so they should be supporting characters and nothing else. I just wonder if you try to do a balanced approach with him, or if you stick with this approach of having like one of the Autobots being more the central character. Like, do you do an Optimus film where Optimus is the primary Autobot? Maybe Bumblebee's in it, maybe have those other, Ratchet and Ironhide in it and stuff like that too. Or do you do kind of something else with just other characters? So I don't know. I hope that if nothing else, we get a sequel to this.
Why couldn't you have a... Well, I guess, if the Decepticon message never came out, right? Because the at the conclusion of this movie, the message was destroyed before it was released, right?
Right, yeah.
Okay. So we're going to say that the Decepticons do not know that all of the Autobots, or the potential Autobot base, is going to be on Earth. So you have the Autobots coming to Earth, and they establish whatever it is, a little base or whatever. Why don't you have a remnant of the Decepticons come in and cause a human problem? Right? So in this one, the Autobots came to Earth, and then you had Charlie. She's got her own problems, and what's his face gets found by her, and he's all fucked up, and they kind of have a mutual story. But why not have an actual human problem influence the actions of the Autobots? That'd be kind of cool, right? Does it make sense? Am I making sense, or am I kind of drunk from this Tennessee whiskey?
Maybe a bit of both. I think what you should do is put pen to paper. It's time for you to write the screenplay for this upcoming sequel. It sounds like you got some ideas swirling around.
I can't write shit. Okay, you don't want me writing a movie. I turn out like Michael Bay.
Well, you do a real Charlie Kelly, Always Sunny type thing where you just use symbols for everything instead of actually putting words on paper.
Anyways, that's all I got on Bumblebee, guys. That's all I got.
Yep.
Colton, do you have anything else?
No, that was it for me. I had those two things, and we have touched on them. So yes, I'm game for a sequel, whatever form it takes, unless it's a shitty form or like something that tries to really connect it to the other films. Fuck that. Keep doing this. More of this. Years of this would be fantastic. If you can bring Travis Knight back, great. If he has to decide between this and Guardians of the Galaxy, tough choice. But I almost think that maybe this might be the way to go. He's proven himself on this stage, and so let him come back. Let him do his thing if he wants to do it. Like that would definitely be good. So, yeah, that's it for me on the Bumblebee.
On the Bumblebee.
The Bumblebee tuna.
Bumblebee tuna.
What have you been up to lately, my friend?
Like shit. I watched Big Trouble in Little China. I tried to watch it with Henry when he came down.
You're right. You said you were going to have this big 80s action week. Did that pan out?
It has not panned out, not really.
Okay.
I did watch, what have I watched? I watched Big Trouble in Little China, which is pretty fucking cool. I don't know if have you ever seen that?
Not in a while, but yes.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I like that. What else have I watched? I watched Split.
Okay.
And Unbreakable.
Mm-hmm.
Which were I enjoyed Unbreakable. I think Unbreakable's pretty cool. It's got a lot of nostalgia there, but the other one was I didn't care. I didn't really care for Split. But not to go into too much detail. It was okay.
Well, perhaps we'll go into more detail at a future date.
That's it. What else is there? What else have I done? I watched Buster Scruggs again. I've been caring to a bonsai tree. I've taken a bonsai tree class on the internet.
All right.
Which is pretty fucking cool. Bonsai, I think is the way it's properly pronounced. Bonsai. Yeah, like okay. Bonsai. And it's a pretty cool art form. I think I'm probably pretty shit at it, but I'm giving it a stab, and if this plant dies, I can always just go buy another one and try again. And I got a bonsai tree for Christmas, so I've taken it apart on myself to try to get involved and try to get it going. I think they're pretty cool. But on a side note, that's one thing I've been up to. I have also watched. Did I talk about the Black Mirror thing? I think I talked about. Okay, I did talk about that. Okay. I haven't done that anymore. I just wanted to make sure I've talked about that. That was pretty cool. And I think that's pretty much it. I have to watch Die Hard and Rambo. I've got the series here, and I just need to get on. And it's going on 10 o'clock now. I probably could slip in Die Hard if we can wrap this up and catch that tonight, which would be pretty interesting. I like that movie a lot. I think it's pretty funny. And pretty good action movie, I think. But that's all I got, man. What have you been up to?
So I finally finished the Constantine NBC series. I just wrapped that up earlier today.
What'd you think about that?
Well, as is the case with most canceled shows, I felt that the ending was not very satisfactory.
Yeah, it's kind of just drops off, right? If I remember right.
Just drops off. It leaves on a cliffhanger, and I was just kind of like, and I actually really didn't like the last episode. It felt very... It's like they brought back a bunch of characters for the sake of bringing a bunch of characters back, and I felt like it didn't make any real story sense. It felt very half-assed of like, oh shit, it's a finale. We got to bring everyone back and make a big thing of it. But I think if the show had the opportunity to continue on and have like maybe a full season order instead of the 13 episodes that it did, it could have resolved a little bit better. But again, that's probably true of most canceled shows. It's like, it is what it is. It's the nature of the business. So I guess I was hoping that it would have some sort of just like, and the war rages on kind of thing, instead of like, here's this big reveal that will never be addressed again. But on the whole, I think it was fine. I enjoyed it for the most part. I think it's uneven between some episodes. Some were really good. Some were fine. I never thought it was outright bad, but Matt Ryan is a fantastic Constantine. I think that there's a reason he has persisted with the role even past the cancellation of the series. And I'm glad that I ended up kind of going back and watching it, I guess, as a, wrap up to all of it. I kind of, I was very inconsistent with watching the show. I know I started it probably a couple months ago, and then I just got busy with school and didn't really watch it, and finally, carved out the time to just go ahead and say like, hey, let me wrap this up. And it was worthwhile, I think I only spent like $20 on the Blu-ray for the whole series, and I felt like I've justified my investment in the series. So, yeah, that was kind of my overall takeaway. Would have watched more, if they made more, absolutely. But it's not a Daredevil-esque cancellation for me of like showing up at the Netflix corporate offices with pitchforks or anything like that,
right?
So other than that, I haven't really watched anything too much. As you mentioned, the Ballad of Buster Scruggs, I finished recently. When we have the bonus episode to show for that. Played a little bit more Forza, which I talked about on our last episode that we recorded. So didn't really have much more to say on that, other than the soundtrack in it is pretty dope. We talked about soundtracks this episode, so it seems appropriate to mention something about soundtracks. I really enjoy the music in that. It's got M83 in it, and it has Chvrches. There's a new Chvrches song in it, which tipped me off to the fact that Chvrches released a new album. You said you don't know Chvrches?
I don't know Chvrches, I don't think.
Yeah, I think they're a synth pop band, Scottish.
Okay. All right, Scottish synth pop.
Good stuff. Yeah, I really liked their first album that came out like 5 or 6 years ago, and I never really listened to their second album for whatever reason. But their third album, I think, came out like late last year or middle of last year, somewhere around there, and I just wasn't aware of it basically until I heard the song in the game.
Right.
And so I've been listening to the album. The album's called Love Is Dead. And I'm really enjoying it. I like synth pop. I have eclectic musical tastes, I would say, but synth pop is definitely something that I like a lot. And I found that this third album is pretty great. So I'd recommend that for anyone that enjoys that genre of music. Unfortunately, I have not had the chance to see Chvrches live. I think missed out on at least 2 opportunities that could have been available to me. They played at Austin City Limits Musical Festival last year, which is the first year in like 4 years that I didn't get a chance to go because I had conflicts with school and such. And they played, I think, in Jacksonville or St. Augustine. I think they played in St. Augustine when I was living in Jacksonville, and the tickets were sold out. And I'm like, I'm not gonna spend the money on that to buy the overinflated resale tickets. So my hope is that I will one day get a chance to see them live, because I really like the music that I've listened to from them, and I would recommend anyone check them out if they, if that's something that sounds like that may be your jam. I think you'd like them. Speaking more personally to you, I think.
Well, I think I'll probably look them up tonight for sure.
I think, give them a go. Because I can definitely recommend the first and third albums.
Chvrches.
So
I will look them up tonight.
I think the first one's called "The Bones of What You Believe," and third one's "Love Is Dead," as I said. So, yeah, that's it for me. I guess we can go ahead and wrap it up there. Thank you all for listening to this episode. If you enjoyed what you heard, we encourage you to spread the word, and we also encourage you to support us on Patreon. As we have mentioned multiple times now, we have a brand new bonus episode available as a timed exclusive for supporters on Patreon, and that is centering around the Coen brothers' latest film, The Ballad of Buster Scruggs, which is available exclusively on Netflix. So those of you that have Netflix subscriptions, steal your Netflix accounts from for your friends and family, check it out. It's just north of 2 hours. It's good fun, good Old West setting. And it's 6 short stories. So we kind of structured our bonus episode around that, where we had a little bit of an individual discussion around each one. So I think that if you find that is to your liking, you'll also find the bonus episode to your liking. And if you want to listen to it, head to our website, which is watchreviewrepeat.com. Premium tab up in the top left, and then click the Become a Patron button. It's $2 a month. You'll get access to that bonus episode, all future bonus episodes on a timed exclusive basis, as well as early access to our regular episodes. If you want to follow us on Twitter, we're at WRRPod. If you want to like us on Facebook, just search for Watch Review Repeat and give us a like. If you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, please send those our way to watchreviewrepeat@gmail.com. I actually... in light of what we're going to be talking about next episode, we don't really have a whole lot of response through our Gmail. I will fully admit to that. But I would be very curious to hear thoughts or listeners' thoughts on what their favorite movies and TV shows were for 2018. Because that's one thing cool. we really didn't do that last year. We didn't really have any other perspectives than our own. And I think it would be interesting to see if we could have some compilations of lists of maybe your top 5 movies, maybe your top 3 TV shows, something like that, things from 2018 that you really enjoyed. It doesn't have to be necessarily structured in list format if you don't feel like going to that after, but if there's anything you really that really struck you in 2018, please share that with us. I think maybe we'll try to set up a Twitter poll, maybe some Facebook polls and stuff like that, so we can get a little bit more feedback on our social medias, so we have another thing to talk about when we look back at 2018 to see if, hey, did everyone feel the same way as we did, or are we kind of out on a limb on our own? I don't know. I think that would be an interesting perspective to discuss. Our intro and outro track, as a side note, no disrespect to Mr. Kevin MacLeod, he's very integral to our show. It is Mechanolith by the aforementioned Kevin MacLeod, licensed under the Creative Commons by Attribution 3.0 license. And our next episode is going to be our 2018 A Year in Review episode. So that's why I'm asking, if you guys have any things that you want to talk about, any opinions on some movies from 2018, now would be a great time. We're not going to record on that for some time, so there's a good window here for you guys to submit anything. So no rush on that, but don't take too long. That could be problematic. And I'm really excited to, just generally speaking, just talk about 2018, man. It's going to be a bitch, actually. I know when we talked about 2017, I had a pretty strong 1, 2, and then 3 for 5. We're like, I don't know. But here I'm like,
it's a lot of decent stuff, man.
I don't know. I'm going to have to really... my goal this weekend is to watch a few things that I haven't seen, rewatch some things that I think, this could be a top 5. Let me revisit it a few months after the fact and see if it still stands the test of time. But I'm really looking forward to hearing your thoughts on 2018. I think that I think we'll have a little bit of divergence. I would imagine, but I'm curious to see where we have commonality as well. There's some things I haven't. I think there's some things I have seen that you haven't seen. There's probably some vice versa, and I think it's going to be a very interesting discussion getting into all that. So,
yeah, I'm excited for it.
I think it's going to be a good one. So stay tuned for that. Absolutely. Until then, I guess this is the point where Andrew says,
"Ladies on the Minjay, ladies on the Minjay."
That's the thing he says. All right. See ya.